State Senator Joyce Elliott has had a distinguished legislative career for more than almost 2 decades, and it's not completely over yet, but she is term limited. She's run for Congress twice, and she is joining us to discuss life after politics, although her life after politics is still going to have politics in it.
Politics in it.
Senator, thank you for joining us.
Yes. I'm happy to be here. And I have heard from so many people, Roby, who were congratulating or registering their sadness or whatever about my retirement. But just a little bit about this political thing. It doesn't end until the end of the year, or technically until the Monday when other folks are sworn in. But generally, after December 31st, nobody wants to hear from you generally. So far, it has not worked out that way. But yeah, it will be 20 years after that time. And it's really been something that I've wanted to do. And I tell people all the time, we need to lift up politics. It's the way we run our country. We need good people doing it. We need good people making politics better.
We're going to dive into that. Let's talk, though, the last day of the fiscal session, which, barring a special session, might be the last time you're actually on that Senate floor conducting official legislative business. I know there's still committee hearings and things to go. You had to be feeling some emotions on that last day. Tell me a little bit about what was going through your mind.
It was emotional, but it was emotional in a good way. Well, one thing, it was not sad. I thought it might be sad, that last time, but it was emotional in that it's been such a privilege. I think that we don't think about enough as a privilege, that on any given day, only 135 of us out of a bit over 3 million people get to serve in that kind of position. And the other thing I think that made it emotional, just thinking about all of the things that could have been as well that just did not work out. But then, I balanced that with the things that did go well. But I also think we're at such as we've said time and time again, such an unprecedented time of so many things happening, in our lives, in politics and personally. I think that made it a little bit more emotional, that I was thinking, there's so much more that need to be done for people. It would be a good idea maybe if I could be here and still work at it, but that's not the way it works. So but it doesn't mean I can't keep working, outside of that body. Right. But it was definitely an emotional roller coaster there for a bit.
What do you point to in 20 years of legislative service? Is there a crowning achievement? Is there something that you accomplished up there besides the grand scheme of everything that you participated in? Do you look at some particular piece of legislation and know that that was the most worthwhile thing that you did on top of everything else?
Well, just in terms of people's daily lives was the opportunity for us to pass legislation that improved people's health care. The passage of Arkansas's law to make sure folks could take advantage of what we call the Obamacare or the ACA. That I think was just a huge thing, that people have no idea everything that had to happen behind the scenes to make it happen, because we were just getting into a point where Democrats and Republicans seemingly were splitting more. And so I just think for people in our state. And the other thing is what we did with pre-K, to give our kids a better start. Arkansas, for the first few years, that was when I was in the House, for the first few years, we had one of the highest rated, along with New Jersey, pre-K in the country. And we did that because we were required by federal courts to make sure we create the opportunity for an adequate education for our kids. And smartly, the legislature said, if we are going to invest all this money, then we didn't have to do the pre-K, but it makes sense to invest in having our kids ready. And beyond that, and these are things that won't sound all that sexy, but we have a really big problem with our prison overcrowding and some of the criminal justice issues that we have. Some of the things I'm proud of is just being able to get started and just getting some things started in the criminal justice side of things, such as the racial impact statement. that we will come back to that at some point.
Mhm.
And taking a look at folks who have these just incredibly long sentences that are just sitting there for the most part, wasting away when we could be doing, some other things. And lastly, I'll stop on this because I had no idea. I had no idea how many bills I had championed myself that were successful until I was running for Congress. And I finally had to sit down and take a look at it. But educationally, I think it was really important that we change the ability for students in our state to have access to advanced placement classes that really give them an opportunity to be better prepared, whether they go to college or not go to college, but to have the opportunity. When I first went to the legislature, only 35% of the school districts even offered those courses to kids. And now, of course, that's been changed, at least so that the districts will offer in the core area, they will offer those courses. But there are other things we don't have time to talk about. But I feel in the main that everything I did was driven by trying to make people's lives better, not taken away, but adding to. I feel really comfortable and good about that because that's where I went there.
Let's discuss your new endeavor, Get Loud Arkansas. This is a nonprofit aimed at civic engagement, getting more people involved in the voting process, the legislative process. Where did this idea originate? And are you channeling your inner Stacey Abrams with this project?
I am absolutely channeling my inner Stacey Abrams because that's how people need to understand this. I just noticed over the years we had a lower percentage of people. We had a lower percentage of people vote in 2020 than we did in 2018. And I know we are never going to be as strong as we need to be until we get to a point that more people are participating in the process. And seeing what happened in Georgia over a 10 to 13-year period, that's a large state. And Arkansas is a small state and a state where we voted a lower percentage than any other state in the country in 2020. And we have very good people running for office. And I thought, I'm going to do something with the rest of my life. I'm going to do something the next 10 years. And there's nothing more important to me at this point to do with my life than to get Arkansans involved in civic engagement. And that means registering people, making sure the folks who are registered but don't go to the polls, that they are mobilized and going to the polls. And that when they get there, their voices count. We just can't keep waiting for something else to happen. And so I have started Get Loud Arkansas. We've had well over 300 people go to getloudarkansas.org and sign up to be volunteers. What I want people to know, Roby, is that this is not a Joyce Elliott thing, just like the Stacey Abrams thing was not just the Stacey Abrams thing. For the next 10 years, we have to be committed to making sure this works, and I do mean we. But somebody had to get it started. Somebody has to be committed to make sure it keeps going, and I'm going to do that.
All right, we've all been pretty dialed in this past week to the Supreme Court hearings for Ketanji Brown Jackson. You tweeted about several instances earlier in the week of some of the grillings that she received from Senators Tom Cotton, Ted Cruz, and a few others. What's the gist of your takeaways when you are seeing that process? I caveat all that to say, can we even do Supreme Court nominee hearings anymore that aren't theater of the absurd? They've been this way for well over a decade, it seems to me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they have been something not to be that proud of, but I think this one was just an absolutely new low. I mean, we had senators, including one of our senators, who came to the process seemingly not even with the intention of having a civil conversation about the process and about the candidate herself, except to make political points. And I found that very disturbing because nobody expects a candidate to come before the Judiciary Committee and not be asked tough questions. So that is not the issue. But the tough questions should be on the issue of the kind of judge she's going to be, or he, and the issues that really matter to folks vis-a-vis the Supreme Court. And, and there were, if anybody watched this, there were issues just way off the mark, like, how religious are you? And issues that clearly had to do with what Congress should be doing, not anything even within the purview of the Supreme Court.
I believe that was one of her answers to one of those questions was, I'm not
Yes,
the
it was.
Congress. So,
Yeah,
right.
yes. And we just deserve better than that. And I think that somebody, and it takes both parties, but right now there is just more, there's just more that needs to be done. Not to have, for example, the chairman try to call somebody down and hope for success of your cooperating, but just have enough decorum and have enough respect for the people of the United States of America, and knowing the world is watching us, to at least have a civil discussion. Yeah, we can do that. It's just that people don't intend to do it. And so that leaves it to us, I think, as the citizens. We need to elect people who will at least go to Washington and not embarrass us in a situation that is so important for this country. Ketanji, Judge Jackson did not deserve what happened to her. This country did not deserve to have our senators behave as they did. And if nobody else is if they're not gonna hold themselves accountable, I think that's something people really need to remember, because people tend not to pay much attention to what's happening in the Supreme Court or the whole process until there is some kind of ruling. You need to understand this matters. And when we have somebody that we're considering for the Supreme Court, who you vote for is going to determine who gets on that Supreme Court. Remember the people who were making these decisions, how they acted, how they did not carry out their function as they should have, and yet there were others who did and did it well.
I think Judge Jackson's probably got numbers in her favor at this point in time, but we will wait and see. Lastly, for you, are you done running for political office?
Yes, I am, because I think that there are really good people running for office, and there have been over the years. And as somebody said the other day, never say never. I am saying no. I have no intention of running for another office, and I think this is a never. But I will be careful about it. But I really do want to spend the next 10 years of my life making sure our democracy works and that our democracy is protected, and that the laws that were passed out of the blue regarding voter suppression and possibly voter nullification, these kind of things, should not stand. But more importantly, I want people to be educated, get to the polls. I don't care who you are. I'm not trying to tell anybody how to vote. But we will keep getting what we're getting in Washington if we keep sending what we're sending to Washington, and the same thing from the bottom up. It's not just Washington, it's all of us.
You're welcome to spend the next 10 years staying active in politics, but if you want to spend the next 20 or 25, I think there's some people that would say, keep on trucking, Joyce Elliott. So
I keep hearing that.
All right. She's State Senator Joyce Elliott, Democrat of Little Rock. Always good to visit with you. Good luck in the new endeavor. We look forward to learning more about it and watching things unfold.
Well, may I say to people, last of all, go to getloudarkansas.org and get involved to join the movement. We need a passel of volunteers to make this work.